Hi, everybody. Um, welcome. Hope you're having a great day. Thanks for checking this out. Um, let's see here. I guess we can get right into today's little live stream. As always, if you have any questions or comments or anything, just drop them in the chat, and let's get going. The past, I don't know, maybe like 4 lessons or so, been talking about chord inversions and how to label them, and then also how we can kind of come up with cool little melodic ideas or little melodic lines that kind of weave through the chords by just following chord tones. Remember, we had that bass walk down. It was like, right? And then we played with moving that to different voices and different ranges. And so today I kind of wanted to dive a little bit more into the inversions. I know that we've got our root position, we've got our first inversion, and we've got our second inversion. So I thought it would be kind of cool to talk a little bit about what makes a chord inversion sound good, I guess, for lack of a better term. And this is going to be good to my ears because music is awesome and it is subjective. So although, there are some, universal truths to how sound moves, it is up to the person hearing it. Beauty's in the ear of the beholder. So, I guess just to jump right in, if we got this C, E, G root position chord, that sounds great. It sounds perfectly natural. But what would happen when we start displacing these notes? So let's take this E and let's drop it down an octave. So that still sounds all right, especially, just as 3 notes. This isn't in a song or anything. It's just me playing these tones for you. Yeah, very, very subjective. Very subjective. What would happen if we drop this E tone down another octave? Now it's kind of maybe falling apart a little bit in terms of the tones all going with each other. Let's drop it down another octave, see what happens. Now my ears are hearing these less as a quote unquote chord and more as 2 notes up top and a note down at the bottom. And I think everyone will hear differently. Some people will know that this is, a C major chord with that E way down in the bass, and some people will be like, there's a tone here, there's a couple other tones here. I don't know how they relate to each other. It's all good. However you hear music is totally good. It's just something to keep in mind, though, when you're creating your music. So let's go from bringing this E all the way down here. Let's bring it back up. Getting better to my ears. Okay. I'm a little bit more comfortable with that. Very comfortable with that. Let's go in the opposite direction. What would happen if we take this E up an octave? I'm going to drop my whole piano down an octave just because that's how I'm set up right now. So this is our 1, 3, 5, C, E, G. And we'll take out that E, put it up an octave. That's glorious. That's just beautiful. I love that sound. C, G, E. I love that sound. Let's keep going. Let's put our E up another octave. Okay. I'm with that. Maybe I don't personally enjoy it as much as this sound, but it still works. How about up another octave? Yeah, that works. And now my piano is getting out of tune. Need to call the tuner. So it's a little bit more there's a little bit more, I guess maybe like leeway when you remove that third and go and move it up versus when you remove that third and move it down. And that gets into how we perceive music, how we hear music, how we hear sound, the physics of sound. I'm totally in love with the physics of sound. It's completely captivating and fascinating to me. And it really informs how we decide. And we do this on a subconscious level. Most of us are not even aware of this. But how we are like, I like that. That sounds consonant to me versus I don't like that. That sounds just too dissonant to me. And the intervals that we find the most consonant are the lowest in the harmonic series. I've talked about this before, so I hope I don't bore anybody. But and then as you go up the harmonic series, the intervals become smaller and they become more dissonant to us. So a 1-3-5 chord, those are all within the first 8 overtones of the harmonic series. So this sounds natural to us. It sounds very good. But when we start displacing that third, or also known as the E, or even down there, then it starts to sound a little bit more dissonant to us. It is not as consonant, and that is because of the order of the harmonic series. Having the E appear all the way down there and having these two notes up here is going to it's not as natural sounding to us. And it's a risk of totally boring absolutely everyone, but I totally love this. I've talked about it before. There's a phenomenon called combination tones. And basically what combinations of tones are is when you have two frequencies, we'll call them frequency A and frequency B. You subtract frequency A, the lower frequency, from frequency B, and your ears perceive a new tone, and that is called a combination tone. It's really incredible. So like, just for example, if our first tone is 500 hertz and our second tone is 400 hertz, the combination tone that we will hear is 100 hertz, because 400, take 400 out of 500 and you get 100 hertz. So it's absolutely incredible that our ears function this way, and they psychoacoustically fill in this information. So when we've got, and this applies to our chords, because when we've got, for example, just that, I'm going to leave the fifth out. So we just have a C and an E right here. So this combination tone that our ears are hearing and it is created is this C, 2 octaves lower. That's a very consonant sound, right? And let's say that we reverse those and we played E and then C, right? The combination tone that is created here is going to be a G. That sounds great, no problem. But what about when we take this E and we move it down another octave? That's kind of starting to get a little bit more dissonant. It still all works, it's still all C major, but it is nowhere near as consonant as something like this. So how this affects us, I know people are probably not wanting to, think of combination tones when they're arranging their music or whatever. But how this affects us is basically keep your lower intervals, or the intervals that are in the bass, keep those. You want those to be strong, have a strong relation to the chord. So we like we like C's in the bass, which is the root, or we like G's in the bass, which is the 5. The third, it's pushing it. It's like, don't hang out there for too long. If you play it in passing, our ears will forgive it, they'll let it go. But if you're just laying on that, then maybe it's going to be a little bit more dissonant than having the G there, the 5th, or the root. So roots and 5ths are great in the bass. Another thing is, this is a closed chord, meaning all the 3 tones are contained within one octave of each other. When we, for example, brought that E up, it becomes an open chord. And this is cool. It's great. It's a great way to kind of spread out across the harmonic spectrum. If you think of each tone as a color, this is providing more color in your painting than this, because it's a higher waveform. Sorry, I know that might not make sense, but when we open it up, it takes up more space. We can cover more ground from the low tones to the high tones, and it's all about, creating a very full picture. The danger of these open chords is if you start to open them up too much, then they start to get a little bit more shaky. To my ears, that is not as constant as this. Or we could go in the opposite direction. That to me is it's almost like it's bordering on those being 3 discrete notes, as opposed to hearing that as a chord. So I hope some of that made sense. I hope it didn't drag on for too long. I love this stuff and can talk about it for a long time until someone tells me not to. So I'm actually gonna tell myself not to keep going here. I guess the main takeaways that I want to talk about, or that I want to reiterate, are roots and 5ths are great to have in the bass. You can open up your chords to create more, to create a bigger sense of space, but careful of making them too open. And I guess the last thing is kind of like I was talking about last week. If we add a second instrument to our arrangement, that really, it's like, if we think of, it's like, that's almost like the brush strokes, right? It's like if you got Van Gogh brush strokes, and that's like one chord, right? And then if you bring in a different texture of brush strokes, they're going to stand out against the Van Gogh brush strokes because they look different. So that's almost maybe what a different instrument in the mix is. I'm not sure. I gotta rethink that analogy. But all of that to say that if you have 2 instruments, then you can really start to explore different textures, because maybe you've got instrument 1 playing that nice, and then you could also have instrument 2 doing something like, I don't know, right? So they're all C's, E's, and G's, but just where they are and who's playing what is like so much fun to explore and play around with and have fun with. All right, I'm gonna stop talking. So yeah, if anybody's got any questions or whatever, let me know. Maria, thank you for tuning in. Always good to see you, or good to feel your presence, I guess. Last thing, as always, I'm available for lessons. If you want to learn more about music, or if you need some help getting your music out there, I would love to help that. I just want to help people through music. So I hope, there's tons of places for music. There's tons of places for it. It's beautiful. And there's music everywhere too. I think that's kind of like a big thing that the 20th century classical musicians kind of came across was like, I don't know, there's a story of, I think it was like Maurice Ravel going into like a factory, like an industrial factory, and like him being like very moved just by the sounds of these machines working. And I really like that because it forced me to recategorize what I call music and what I think of as music. And I kind of think that anything that is sound is music. Some of it's very consonant, some of it's not very consonant. But just breaking sound down into tone is it's very interesting. It really helped my ears a lot and made me understand a lot more about sound, how it works, and then how to make, music that is closer to my heart. All right, so I need to stop talking here. I hope you have a lovely weekend as well. I hope everyone has a lovely weekend. Tune in next Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern time, and yeah, and we'll talk some more then. All right, I'll see you all later.